All right, welcome you. You know we're diving deep into Shakespeare's Macbeth today, right?
We are indeed.
And you've sent in some really fantastic sources for this. So instead of just, rehashing the plot, which I'm sure a lot of you already know, we thought we'd dig into how Shakespeare, like a master filmmaker, or maybe a master playwright,
Right.
actually used very specific techniques to make this play so gripping, so dramatic. I mean, he really brought the drama to life on stage for his audience back then. And, he's still doing it for us today.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can really think of this deep dive as us kind of looking at Shakespeare's directorial choices.
Mm.
Even though, obviously, he was the writer, he didn't direct in the way that we think about directors now.
Right.
But he had a whole range of tools and techniques that he used to make sure Macbeth wasn't just a story, but, a real visceral experience for the audience.
Exactly. It is fascinating how he did it. I mean, from, the everyday back and forth between characters to those, like, charged moments of silence, even how he tells the actors to move on stage or how the stage should look.
Yes.
All of it was really carefully designed to pull the audience into Macbeth's world.
Yeah.
So our mission in this deep dive is to unpack these techniques of what we call dramatization. So you can see, really, not just what happens in Macbeth, but how Shakespeare makes it land with so much power.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's jump right into it with something fundamental. The power of spoken words. Now in Macbeth, dialogue.
Yeah.
It's not just people chatting, right? It's like the engine of the drama.
It really is. And I think what's key to understand here is that Shakespeare's dialogue, it does so much more than just convey information.
Right.
It's one of the primary ways that he builds tension and reveals what's going on inside the characters, how they work, their motivations, and it also really propels the entire story forward. So just as, like a really heated argument can totally change the atmosphere in a room, Shakespeare uses the back and forth of conversation to create conflict and to really keep you, the listener, on the edge of your seat.
Yeah.
And, keep the original audience on the edge of their seats as well.
It's true. And you think about that first encounter with the three witches, right? Act 1, Scene 3. Macbeth and Banquo, they're just riding along, and suddenly these eerie figures just kind of materialize, and they deliver these really short, unsettling pronouncements. All hail Macbeth! Hail to thee, Thane of Glomus!
Right.
It's so sudden, so mysterious.
It is. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, you can see how those really brief lines immediately introduce this element of the supernatural into the play. And they also act as this really powerful piece of foreshadowing, hinting at the events that are to come, creating this kind of underlying sense of unease.
Yeah.
And I think it's also worth noting the contrast in how Macbeth and Banquo react to the witches.
Yeah. Tell me.
Macbeth, he's instantly intrigued, almost like latching onto these pronouncements, whereas Banquo remains much more skeptical and really questions their motives.
Right. He's like, wait a minute, this feels a bit off.
Yeah, exactly.
But Macbeth's already hooked.
Yeah, he wants to know more.
Yeah. And then you have that really intense exchange between Lady Macbeth and Macbeth, Act 1, Scene 7, where Macbeth, he is wrestling with some serious doubts about murdering Duncan. And Lady Macbeth, she unleashes this torrent of, it's almost like persuasion, but almost bullying.
Yeah. It's really interesting to think about, like, manipulation in that scene and the power dynamics.
Yeah.
Because Lady Macbeth's language is so forceful.
It is.
She doesn't just ask him to reconsider, his doubts. She goes after his courage, questions his manhood.
Right.
Remember that really disturbing imagery she uses?
Oh, I know exactly what you're about to say.
About taking her own infant and dashing its brains out?
Gruesome. It's really disturbing.
It is. It really shows her ruthless ambition. And just how determined she is to see this, regicide through.
Yeah. I mean, you can practically feel Macbeth's resolve weakening under her, I don't know, like Verwin onslaught. The balance of power in their marriage definitely tilts, in that scene.
Yeah.
With her taking this dominant, almost coercive role. It's a masterclass in how to build dramatic tension purely through dialogue.
Absolutely. And then, if we jump ahead to the banquet scene in Act 3, Scene 4.
Yes.
Macbeth's confronted by Banquo's ghost.
Right.
Which, of course, is a hallucination that only he can see.
Right.
And his dialogue in this scene is this raw, unfiltered outpouring of guilt and, well, it seems like madness to everyone else.
It does. It's almost unbearable to watch.
Yeah.
He's ranting at thin air, completely freaking out all the other guests who have absolutely no idea what he's seeing.
Yeah, yeah.
And it really highlights how isolated he's becoming, consumed by, I guess, his guilt, the weight of his actions, and the fact that everybody else is just bewildered, you know. It just amplifies his deteriorating mental state and that dramatic irony for us, the audience.
Yes. It's fascinating. Shakespeare uses Macbeth's, increasingly fragmented and frantic speech to kind of externalize his inner turmoil. So, we, the audience, we understand why he's acting so strangely, the sorts of his behavior. But to the other characters, it's just deeply unsettling and inexplicable.
Yeah, totally. And then think about that incredibly moving conversation between Macduff and Malcolm, Act 4, Scene 3.
Yeah.
After Macduff has received the devastating news that his entire family has been slaughtered, that dialogue, it's just so heart-wrenching. It begins with this disbelief, and then descends into this raw despair. And then finally, it just erupts into this really intense, righteous anger and this burning desire for revenge against Macbeth.
Yeah, and it's a real turning point, isn't it?
It is.
Not just for Macduff's character, but really for the whole trajectory of the play. His personal tragedy provides him with a really powerful motivation to confront Macbeth. And the dialogue, it charts that really intense emotional journey.
It does.
Which makes his eventual showdown with Macbeth all the more, dramatically powerful and resonant.
Okay. So we've explored how Shakespeare uses spoken words, the actual dialogue, to build this incredible drama. But clearly it's not just about what the characters say, right? It's also about what we, the audience, see happening on stage. And that's where stage directions come into play.
Yes, exactly. Stage directions are Shakespeare's way of giving visual and physical cues in his script. So they basically turn the written text into a dynamic performance. They guide the actor's movements, they tell us how the scene should look, and they contribute a lot to the overall dramatic impact.
Think about the very first thing we see as the play begins. Thunder and lightning. Enter three witches.
Yes.
It's so immediate. And it instantly establishes this dark, supernatural, and frankly, quite unsettling atmosphere.
It does. And what's really effective there is the way Shakespeare uses the natural world to kind of mirror what's going to happen in the play.
Right.
So that technique, where the natural world reflects what's going on with the characters, is called pathetic fallacy.
Pathetic fallacy. Okay.
And the turbulent weather, the thunder and lightning, it really feels like a direct reflection of the chaos and evil that the witches represent. And, that's going to engulf Scotland.
Yeah. And then you have those, seemingly simple stage directions. They appear throughout the play, like enter Macbeth.
Yeah.
They seem almost, unremarkable, but they actually carry weight.
They do. Well, they seem basic. These entrances, they mark Macbeth's presence at these key moments in the play.
Right.
And often signal a change in his status or even his mental state. Remember that hesitant entrance in Act 1, Scene 7, just before he's about to murder Duncan?
Yeah.
It visually represents his internal conflict, his wavering resolve. You, as the audience member, can almost feel his hesitation.
Yeah, you can practically see him kind of psyching himself up to take that irreversible step.
Exactly. And then there's that incredibly dramatic stage direction in Act 3, Scene 4. Enter Banquo's ghost and sits in Macbeth's place.
Oh, yeah. That's powerful visually.
Yeah, it's a very chilling moment for the audience.
Yeah.
The ghost, only Macbeth can see it, which adds to that terror.
Right.
And it's a visual representation of his guilt and the supernatural consequences of his actions. And the detail that it sits in Macbeth's chair, that's loaded with symbolism.
Of course.
It's as if his past is literally haunting his present.
Right.
And foreshadowing that, he won't be king forever. His reign is unstable.
It's like his stolen power is being directly challenged. Yeah, I like that. And finally, consider that really quiet, but still really potent stage direction in the sleepwalking scene. Exit Lady Macbeth with a taper in Act 5, Scene 1.
Yes. Now, what's interesting about that seemingly straightforward direction is how much symbolism is packed into it. So the taper, that small flickering light in the darkness, it can be interpreted as representing Lady Macbeth's sanity, which is fading fast,
Right.
and her grip on life, which is weakening. And then she exits alone into the darkness. That foreshadows her death, which is coming very soon, and kind of the extinguishing of her ambition.
Yeah, you can almost feel her slipping away. It's a very poignant and understated image. So we've seen how dialogue, spoken words, and stage directions contribute to the drama. But now let's talk about how Shakespeare allows us to peek right inside the characters' minds.
Yes.
And he does this through the use of soliloquies and asides.
Right.
It's like getting access to those secret thoughts that no other character on stage can hear.
Exactly. Soliloquies and asides, these are dramatic techniques that break down that invisible fourth wall between the actors and the audience.
Right.
To give you this really privileged, intimate view into the character's thoughts, their feelings. And, this creates a connection between the character and the audience. And it allows us to understand them on a much deeper level.
Right, their motivations, their conflicts.
Exactly.
And, Macbeth's famous soliloquy in Act 2, Scene 1, beginning, "Is this a dagger which I see before me?" is such a great example of this.
Yes, it is.
He's all alone on stage, wrestling with this huge decision whether or not to murder King Duncan. And connecting that to the bigger picture, you see that his speech, it just lays bare this intense internal conflict that's raging inside him. He's wavering between his ambition, which is so strong, and his conscience. And that image of the dagger floating before him, it highlights the psychological turmoil he's experiencing.
It's like he's blurring the lines between reality and imagination.
Yes.
Maybe even suggesting some supernatural influence pushing him towards the murder.
It's like we're right there in his head with him, experiencing that agonizing indecision.
Yeah.
The moral weight of what he's contemplating. And then you have Lady Macbeth's soliloquy in Acts 1, Scene 5, which includes that line, "Come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here." So striking.
It is. And what's really revealing about that speech is it shows us her ambition, which is fierce, almost terrifying.
It is.
And this desire to get rid of what she sees as feminine weakness, to achieve her goals.
Yeah.
She's literally asking these spirits to strip her of her compassion. It's a very unsettling glimpse into her character.
It definitely sets her up as, like, a primary driving force behind Macbeth's ambition, almost more ruthless and single-minded than he is at the start. Then later on, in Act 3, Scene 1, Macbeth delivers another crucial soliloquy. "To be thus is nothing, but to be safely thus." He's achieved his ambition, he's King of Scotland.
Right.
But he's still tormented by insecurity and paranoia.
Yes. And that really underscores how corrosive power can be, because he has what he wanted, but it hasn't brought him peace or fulfillment. Instead, it's just created anxiety and this need for violence to protect his position. So we, the audience, we see how the very thing he craved has become a source of torment.
It's a good reminder that achieving your ambition doesn't always lead to happiness. And then we have the asides, those little, almost whispered, secret remarks that a character makes either to the audience or to another character on stage.
Right.
Macbeth's aside in Act 1, Scene 4, after Duncan names Malcolm as his heir, "Stars, hide your fires, let not light see my black and deep desires," is so telling.
Yeah. It's a perfect example of how asides create dramatic irony for the audience. We immediately know about Macbeth's murderous ambition, while Duncan has no clue. It creates this sense of foreboding.
It really does. It's like we're let in on a dangerous secret, which leads us perfectly into this idea of dramatic irony in Macbeth. It's all about the audience knowing something crucial that the characters don't.
Yes, exactly. Dramatic irony happens when the audience knows something that one or more of the characters on stage just don't know. And Shakespeare uses this technique throughout Macbeth to build suspense, to make the events of the play more impactful.
Right.
And to really draw the audience in emotionally. Because we're watching these characters and they're walking into these dangerous situations or making decisions that are based on false assumptions. And we know what's really going on.
Think back to Duncan's complete trust in Macbeth in the first 2 acts of the play. He calls Macbeth his peerless kinsman. He says he feels totally safe in Macbeth's castle.
Right.
It's almost painful for us to watch because we know about the murder plot.
Yes, it's that contrast, isn't it, between Duncan's innocence, his complete trust, and Macbeth's treachery.
Yes.
That creates such a powerful sense of dramatic irony for you watching. And, Duncan's kind words, his total lack of suspicion, it makes his murder even more tragic for us.
Yeah, we see it coming. And there's nothing he can do to stop it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you have the witch's prophecy about Banquo's descendants in Act 3, Scene 1.
Yes.
Banquo is wary of the witches, but the audience we understand that this prophecy, it's a threat to Macbeth's rule.
Mm.
And we know he's going to try to eliminate Banquo and his son, Flance.
Right.
So the irony is, Banquo suspects Macbeth might have done something wrong to get the crown, but he doesn't realize the danger he and his son are in.
Right.
We do.
Yeah.
And we're waiting for that betrayal.
Yeah. And Lady Macbeth's sleepwalking scene in Act 5, Scene 1, that's another great example of dramatic irony.
It is.
As she walks through the castle, she's reliving the murders, and her words reveal the truth of their crimes to the audience. But the doctor and gentlewoman, they're just confused.
Yeah. They see how distressed she is, how much she's suffering.
Right.
But they don't understand the reason for it. We do. We know about the crimes that are haunting her.
It's a tragic irony. Her guilt is tearing her apart, but no one around her understands why.
Yes, exactly.
And then, of course, the apparitions, prophecies to Macbeth in Act 4, Scene 1. The ones about none of woman born harming him and Birnam Wood moving to Dunsinane.
Right.
Macbeth, he takes these prophecies literally, so he feels invincible.
Yeah.
But we, the audience, understand that there's a double meaning.
Yes.
We know about Macduff's birth and Malcolm's army using branches for camouflage.
It's a classic example of dramatic irony leading to tragic consequences. Macbeth's overconfidence, which is based on his misunderstanding, sets him up for his downfall. And it's ironic that the things he thinks will protect him are what destroy him.
It's like watching a car crash in slow motion.
Right.
We see it coming, but Macbeth is completely blind to it. So we've talked about the spoken words, the actions on stage. But Shakespeare also uses symbols to add meaning and enhance the drama, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's as if the objects, actions, even ideas in the play are speaking to us on this deeper level.
Right.
Symbolism enriches the dramatic experience by adding these layers of meaning, and it connects with you on this really profound, sometimes subconscious level. And these symbols, they often represent the big themes and emotions of the play.
I mean, the most obvious symbol in Macbeth has to be blood, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. Blood is everywhere.
It is.
And it represents so much guilt, the violence of their actions, the consequences that can't be undone. From the moment Macbeth first thinks about this bloody business to Lady Macbeth trying to wash the blood off her hands, it's this constant reminder of their crimes and how much they're suffering because of them.
You can almost see that stain of guilt on their hands, not literally, of course, but figuratively.
Right.
And then there's the turbulent weather, the thunder, lightning, storms. They always seem to happen at key moments, like when the witches appear or when Duncan is murdered.
Yeah, that's a great example of pathetic fallacy.
Right.
The natural world reflecting the chaos and disorder that Macbeth's ambition unleashes. It just heightens the tension and foreshadows the evil that's taking hold. It's like nature itself is reacting to the murder of the king.
And the contrast between darkness and light is another powerful symbol. Darkness is so closely associated with evil and secrecy.
Yeah, Macbeth always wants to hide his deeds in darkness.
Right.
And the darkness throughout the play really emphasizes how corrupt his ambition is. But then, you know, when daylight returns at the end, you could say that symbolizes the restoration of order.
Right. Good overcoming evil. It's as if the darkness that we see on stage reflects the darkness inside Macbeth. And lastly, there's the motif of sleep. Or the lack of it, really.
Yes. Sleep is always shown as the symbol of innocence, peace, a clear conscience.
Right.
When Macbeth says he's murdered sleep, it shows how much his inner peace is shattered. And then Lady Macbeth, she can't sleep either.
Right.
She's sleepwalking, and it shows how guilty they both are.
They can't escape the consequences of their actions, not even in sleep. So we've explored all these amazing techniques that Shakespeare uses in Macbeth, but how do they connect to the big themes of the play?
Well, I think what's important to note is that these techniques aren't just, you know, decorations. They're crucial to how Shakespeare explores the themes of Macbeth.
Right.
The drama comes directly from the character's struggles with these big ideas.
Like ambition, for example. We see how destructive it can be through Macbeth's soliloquies, his conversations with Lady Macbeth, and the dramatic irony of Duncan's trust in him.
Exactly. Shakespeare doesn't just tell us that ambition is dangerous.
Right.
He shows us. We see Macbeth's inner struggle, the pressure from Lady Macbeth, and the consequences of his choices.
And the guilt. That's everywhere, too.
It is. Lady Macbeth sleepwalking, Macbeth seeing Banquo's ghost, the blood. All these elements really bring home the torment of guilt.
Shakespeare makes us feel their suffering. And then there's the question of fate versus free will. The witches' prophecies suggest fate. Yeah.
But Macbeth and Lady Macbeth make choices to fulfill those
All
prophecies.
right. So the question is, are they controlled by fate, or are they making their own choices?
Mm-hmm.
Shakespeare doesn't give us a clear answer.
Oh.
And that's what makes it so dramatic. We watch them wrestle with this question.
And we see how power corrupts Macbeth. He
Yeah.
becomes a tyrant.
Mm-hmm. His subjects fear him. And in the end, he's overthrown. Macbeth is a cautionary tale about power. And Shakespeare uses drama to make that message hit home.
So this has been a really fascinating look into how Shakespeare created the drama of Macbeth. But I think we should address some questions you might have.
Of course.
First, what do we even mean by dramatization when we talk about Macbeth?
Well, when we talk about dramatization in Macbeth, we're talking about all the techniques Shakespeare uses to make the story come alive for an audience.
Mm-hmm.
The dialogue, the stage directions, the ways characters reveal their thoughts.
Right.
It's about how he turned the story into a powerful experience for people watching the play. So even though Macbeth is a written play, how does Shakespeare make it feel so dramatic?
He uses a lot of tools. Powerful language, vivid stage directions, soliloquies, asides, dramatic irony, symbolism. He combines all these elements to create an intense experience, even if you're just reading it.
Can you give an example of dramatic irony in Macbeth?
Sure. Think about Duncan praising Macbeth, trusting him completely, while Macbeth is planning to kill him. We know what Macbeth is thinking, but Duncan doesn't. That's dramatic irony.
And why are soliloquies so important for understanding the play?
Because they let us hear the character's thoughts directly. When a character's alone on stage, speaking their mind, we get to know their true motivations, their fears, their ambitions. In Macbeth, the soliloquies are essential for understanding his journey into darkness.
And how do stage directions help create the dramatic atmosphere?
Stage directions tell us what the scene looks like, the mood, the sounds, thunder, lightning at the start. They also tell us how the actors move and interact. All this helps set the mood and pace of the scene.
So what's the difference between a soliloquy and an aside?
The difference is who hears it. A soliloquy is a long speech delivered by a character alone on stage. They're basically talking to the audience, sharing their thoughts. An aside is shorter. It's a remark made directly to the audience or to another character.
Right.
But the other characters on stage aren't supposed to hear it. Asides are often used to create dramatic irony or to give us quick insights into a character's mind.
Well, this has been a really enlightening look at the dramatic techniques in Macbeth. Understanding these techniques really helps us appreciate Shakespeare's genius.
I agree. Once you start to see how Shakespeare uses these tools, Macbeth becomes more than just a story. It's a carefully constructed drama designed to make us feel certain emotions and think about big ideas.
So here's something to think about. Now that you know about these techniques, do you see them in other stories? In books, movies, even real life? Are there stage directions and soliloquies happening around us all the time if we just pay attention?
That's a great question. It really makes you think.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you've gained a new perspective on Macbeth. Keep exploring the stories around you. We'll see you on the next deep dive.